I did want to go over was white supremacy. Now, I'm going to do this in two separate sections. It'll be easier it'll be easier to split it up into YouTube segments if I do it that way. And B, they're kind of tied together, but they're two different facets. One's the kind of the social facet and how we should react to white supremacy in our social standings in the court of public opinion. And then the other part is how officials in government organizations should respond to it, such as the FBI and Congress, things like that. So we're going to start off right now. There's this very, very interesting video that I thought was really cool from a YouTuber called Uprocks. And let me go ahead and show it to you. So what this video is about is what do you do when you're faced with like a Nazi at a protest? You know, do you punch him in the face? I mean, that's my first reaction, is to punch him in the face. But I also think that this particular method is also quite interesting. And I'm really, really surprised by the outcomes of this. And so I think it's really a nuanced situation, whether you punch a Nazi or you hug them. What's going to be the best way to reform them is my goal is to get people on the right side of history and the right, in the right frame of mind, and to make them be in other people's shoes and empathy, but also critical thinking and realizing when we have to fight back against certain things. So let's go ahead and take a look at this.
What would you do if you were face to face with hatred? Would you yell? Would you punch? For Aaron Courtney, a high school football coach from Gainesville, Florida, the answer was hug. Courtney was on his way out from a protest against white nationalist Richard Spencer's speech at
That guy's a piece of shit, by the way, Richard Spencer. I'd probably punch him, to be honest. I might punch him. Because I don't know if he even believes half the shit he says as much as he is. I don't know. He might, but he's just volatile, man, and he brings so many people under the umbrella of white supremacy and white nationalism that it's disgusting. So he does a lot more harm than your average street punk Nazi guy.
University of Florida, when he spotted his chance to confront someone who hates his very existence. He just had one question. But Randy Furness, a neo-Nazi skinhead, didn't have an answer. Instead,
of course he didn't have an answer, because he doesn't know. Like, I mean, these people who have these belief systems don't have any ethical system that backs it up behind it. They don't really know why they believe the things they do. It's just it's a knee-jerk reaction based on fear or fear of things that you don't understand or things that you're not familiar with, or it's just straight up like passed on ignorance from generation to generation. So yeah, these guys don't really know most of the time why they believe the things they do, why they spread hate.
Stared. I could have hit him. I could have hurt him, Courtney told the New York Daily News. But something in me said, you know what? He just needs love. That's when Courtney, taking his father's teaching as a bishop at heart, offered Furness a hug. And finally, he got an answer. I don't know. It's a gesture that a former white supremacist recommends as more effective than a punch, and Samantha Bee recently even dedicated a whole...
Just that scene. I mean, you're fucking dead inside if you don't look at that and it doesn't give you some emotional reaction to see them embracing like that. I mean, like I said, it's not always the way to go, but just to see... I mean, how do you think that do you think that changed that guy's mind a little bit? I mean, I really think that probably did something to his belief system, and at least shook it a little bit.
Tongue-in-cheek segment to it.
I would imagine in the history of the world, nobody's changed their opinion because they got punched in the face, because it now makes them the victim. So
Yeah, it's the same thing with debate. If you put people on the defensive, whether through acts of violence or verbal assault, uh, you're automatically going to put them on the defensive, and they're going to be hearing you less. Well, they'll be hearing you, but they'll listen to you less. They won't come to you to the middle ground, see your point of view of things. It's going to be a fight, as opposed to something that could bring them over and make them realize that they're wrong in their views and in their hatred.
hug a Nazi.
Christian Piccolino now
Hug
runs
a
Life After
Nazi.
Hate, a counter-radicalization group, and says that the key to reaching and reforming white supremacists is understanding.
The best way to
Yes.
destroy hate is with love.
I'm sorry. You said what now?
Daryl Davis, a blues musician from Chicago, has employed love and understanding as tools in dismantling hate. Over the last 30 years, 200 Ku Klux Klan members have given up their robes as a result of their friendship.
Now that's numbers, man, right there. That's numbers. I mean, the guy got 200 people to renounce their racist views, deeply entrenched racist views, because of his friendship with them. That definitely shows that there is some validity to this type of tactic. If you even want to call it a tactic, I would call it just being empathetic and trying to bridge gaps,
Friendship with Davis.
If you spend 5 minutes, just 5 minutes, with your arch enemy, you will find that you have something in common with him or her.
But many don't agree with Davis. In a sit-down with two Black Lives Matter activists in his documentary Accidental Courtesy, he tries to explain his approach.
We all have to live in this country together. Okay, we do. Otherwise, we're going to end up self-destructing.
Instead of spending time collecting the history of hate, why not spend that time trying to collect the history that was stolen from us?
Critics of Davis and of those trying to fight.
I don't know. Like, okay, so I understand where he's coming from on that, but it's not history. It's not just history. I mean, these things are happening in the present, and he didn't just, go back in time and change Nazis' opinions or document the hate of Nazis or white supremacists or KKK. He actually changed hearts and minds of certain people that exist today in our world. So I do find that quite intriguing that he was able to do such a thing,
Fight hate with hugs ask, why must the burden of being the bigger person continuously fall on the oppressed, and specifically on people of color? And while the concept of hugging the racism out of a person is attractive, the reality is that doing so puts yourself at risk when...
Now that's a good point. If you're going to do these types of things, some of these people are very, very violent, and they're going to be so very entrenched in their ways and so ignorant that they're going to lash out rather than hug you back, I guess, So I like this. A white supremacist and Nazi believes the genocide of everyone who does not look like them or is them. So no, I'm not going to hug a Nazi. It's a good point, but I mean, yeah. I just think that you have to be careful. Like I said, it's always about nuance. It's always about choosing your moment and critical thinking and it's good to be able to read body language too and that sort of thing.
Facing someone whose entire ideology is at odds with your safety. It's a question that separated schools of thought in the civil rights movement too. Malcolm X urged for equality by any means necessary, while Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. preached about the weapon of love. If we are arrested every day, if we are exploited every day, if we are trampled over every day, don't ever let anyone pull you so low as to hate them. We must use the weapon of love. We must have compassion.
I do have to kind of agree with this a little bit. Like, a hate seems to degrade. It seems to be heavy on you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I use that word very, 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 very lightly, or not very lightly at all. You know what I mean? I use that word very, very sparingly, because to hate somebody takes so much energy. Maybe even more than loving somebody does. I mean, to truly hate somebody. And so I tend to not use that word or conflate it with disagreeing or having animosity for, or simply thinking a person's not a very good person. You can think a person's not a very good person and not hate them. So it's just, I mean, it may be semantics, but I think words are important. And so therefore I don't use the word hate very often. Yeah. Except for when it comes to like Donald Trump.
And understanding for those who hate us. We must realize that so many people are taught to hate us that they're not totally responsible for their hate. But we stand in life at midnight. We are always on the threshold of a new dawn. There's no manual for how to erase hate and intolerance. What is the right way to approach a Nazi? Is there one? But if there were a chance you could somehow open someone's eyes to a new perspective through kindness, would you? For Uprocks, I'm Steve Vasquez.
Yeah, I don't know. I really like that segment right there. It's quite interesting to see, just that there are different ways to tackle things. There are different things that we can do.